Today we're going to talk about the nitrogen cycle, and this is the document that you'll need. As you can see, all the notes are actually there for you today. However, there are some questions at the end that you'll have to answer on your own, and they're pretty specific, so you will have to make sure you read through those and that you watch the video. During the lesson on the spheres of Earth, we saw that the atmosphere has a lot of nitrogen in it, and the nitrogen cycles around the Earth. So it starts in the atmosphere, then it goes into the soil, then it goes into the animals, and back into the atmosphere, and it just keeps on going like that. So we'll take a look at that now. The first thing that happens with the nitrogen is it has to go from the atmosphere to the soil. So in order to get to the soil, we have these little bacteria that bring them there. And after that, this is when fixation will start. So fixation happens in the soil, and that's when the bacteria convert this nitrogen that was brought to the soil, and it converts it into these nitrogen containing compounds such as nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia. Now, another way that the nitrogen can be fixated, so turned into those nitrogen compounds, is by lightning and ultraviolet light. That's why I have it here in this picture. But they can only do it for a very small amount of nitrogen. And then also, just so you know, humans have an impact on the nitrogen cycle, and one way that we do this is by adding nitrogen to the soil when we're using fertilizer. Now the next step is assimilation, and this is when the plants, they're going to take up the nitrogen compounds because it's no longer just nitrogen, it's those nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia. And it takes those up into their roots and it incorporates them into the plant proteins and into the nucleic acids. So here we have a carrot plant, and the roots of the carrots brought the nitrogen compounds up into themselves. And as you know, these are producers because they are a plant. Now that the nitrogen-rich compounds became available to these producers, it's going to go through the food chain. So as we can see, the carrot here has the nitrogen-rich compounds inside of it, and it will be consumed by this rabbit, which now he will have nitrogen-rich compounds inside of him. The same thing happens when the fox consumes the rabbit. The same thing happens when the wolf consumes the fox. And now that there's nothing to consume the wolf, the nitrogen will still keep going through the cycle because either he will pass away later on and his remains will have the nitrogen-rich compounds inside of them and they'll disintegrate into the soil, or he can also excrete the excess nitrogen compounds in the form of urea or ammonia. That's what we see here. So the cycle does not end once you get to the wolf. It keeps going. And then finally, there are two possible destinations. One of the destinations is that it will just stay in the soil, but it will continue to be decomposed by these fungi. And later it will go through assimilation again, where it will become available to the producers and then consumed again throughout the food chain, etc. The other option is that the nitrogen-rich compounds are released back into the atmosphere after being converted back into nitrogen by these denitrifying bacteria. One thing to remember is that when the nitrogen is not in the atmosphere, it is a nitrogen-rich compound, and it became that because of bacteria. And to go back to becoming just nitrogen, it needs those bacteria's help. Once the nitrogen-rich compounds have become nitrogen again because of the bacteria, it will go back into the atmosphere and the cycle continues. It goes back into the soil and so on. Now that we've gone through the whole nitrogen-rich cycle, there are a few review questions for you to answer. They're all true or false, and they're just at the bottom of the document here. So try and answer those, and then the next time we see each other on the Google Meets, we'll go through the answers. Thank you.